Hello, and thank you for watching the eTrips 2 mobile training videos. In this video, we're going to show you how to add in a trip, offload your catch, and send that trip off to the ACCSP. This video assumes that you have already watched the previous videos entitled Downloading eTrips 2 from the mobile store and logging in and setting up your favorites. So in the last video, we went through and we set up a bunch of favorites. So now let's go into the app and put a trip in. First thing we're going to do is click on the eTrips 2 mobile icon to start the program. And then log in with your username and password and click submit. Again, that's going to download all of your permits and the information that goes along with those permits. Okay, so you'll notice that we come to what we call the home screen. It's here that you can track a new trip, enter a completed trip, or get to your logbook. Before we get started with putting in our trip, I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about the difference between tracking a new trip and entering in a completed trip. First, let's start with track a new trip. Many of the captains that we spoke to wanted to use the application as a logbook to be able to track where they were catching their fish. So part of Track Your New Trip does a few things. The first thing it does is it automatically fills in the date and time of your start trip, and then it also fills in the date and time of your effort. So that way you don't have to go in and put those in manually. Also, when you're out on the water, if you click on a species, it will take the GPS location, assuming that you have GPS enabled on your device. It will take that GPS location and stamp that to your individual catch. So if you're out there and you're using it while you're fishing and you wanted to know where you caught that fish, you could go back later on and look, and that information will be in your logbook. So that's kind of neat. One thing I did want to mention is that this GPS information on where you caught your fish, that stays with the device. So that information does not get uploaded to the ACCSP or to Garfo or any of the other partners. That stays with the device, and that's there for the fishermen to use. So for this trip, we're going to enter in a charter trip in state waters using our state license. We're going to have a trip from yesterday that we're going to put in, so it's a previous day trip. For this trip, we're going to say that we left at 5 a.m., returned to the dock at 2:30 p.m., and we're going to enter in both kept and discarded catches for this trip. So let's go ahead and click on the Enter Completed Trip button. And as you can see, we're going to walk through the trip setup and just click on each one of the boxes and fill in our appropriate items. So for the first trip type, we said we're going to do a charter trip. Our vessel, we said we were going to use our state vessel. And remember, we put these in as favorites. And that's going to take your permit that's associated with that charter and that state boat, and that's going to actually put that in there for you. You'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner that the button and the arrow is now lit up, showing you that you can go on to the next page. You'll see here that there's a number of different items that you can fill in. Each item that has a red exclamation point item is something that will need to be filled in before continuing to the next page. You can see here that you can give your trip a name, although this is not mandatory. We can put in anything that we want to here. Some people put in the name of the people that they are taking out. Some people actually have their own numbering system. That information stays with the device and that does not get sent. So feel free to put in any trip name that might help you out. The VTR number, we'll explain that later, because now we're actually using a trip ID that will come back to the device after you submit the report. So it's very likely that this VTR field may not be here in upcoming releases. You don't have to fill that out now because we're on a state trip, so that doesn't have any real meaning to us. Your crew count, we said that we had 2 crew and 6 anglers. The port that we left from was Point Judith. Again, we set these up in your favorites as well. Your recreational mode will be charter boat. And then you'll see notes. You can put notes in for any items that you want for the trip. These also stay with the device and do not get sent. It's just to help the captain kind of keep track of his trips. Again, you'll see that the bottom right hand corner is now lit up, saying that we can go to the next page. So let's click on that. Our primary areas fished will be state waters inshore. Our waters fished, we can pick one of those again from our favorites. Our gear type, we're going to choose hook and line. Before we go farther, I wanted to explain this area a little bit more in depth. So this is your gear attributes area. Anything that you see here is actually set in the back end with SMS. Currently, gear quantity is still showing up for all of the trips, regardless of whether or not that partner uses gear attributes. So most likely in the future, this item will be removed and just the gear attributes are showing up. So this here is hard coded right now. This is what the partners are setting on the back end. And these gear attributes can be many different things. And the partners have the option to set all of these gear attributes up on the back end in this SMS manager. So let's fill in our gear quantity, saying for now that we just had 6 lines in the water, and we're going to duplicate that here for now. Again, that may change in the future. The next thing you want to do is click on your location, and we can enter this one of 2 ways. If you click on the map icon, you're going to be able to actually GPS your location, and then you can zoom in on the area that you say that you went fishing. So for this area, we can zoom in here and say that we did most of our fishing in this area. And when you tap on the screen like that, you can move that icon wherever you'd like. So let's just say that we fished there for most of our trip. And then if you come down and hit the OK button, that's going to put those GPS coordinates into that box. If for some reason you wanted to enter in your coordinates manually, you can click on this button here, and you can put that information in manually. Again, notes for your effort, those stay with the device themselves. So as you can see, we have the box in the bottom right hand corner lit up, showing that we can move on to the next page. So let's click on that. And this is where we have the do not track your trip. We can change that if we wanted to here, and we can auto track our trip, and we can start our effort now or start our effort later. And those items are going to automatically fill in the information like we spoke about before. But for now, we're going to do not track your trip because we're going to say that this trip was started yesterday. So the first thing we're going to do is go in, and we're going to click on the 14th. The next is our start trip time. We said that this trip left at 5 a.m. So we can very quickly just click on the 5 and then the zeros and then hit OK. Again, our date was yesterday for the end trip date. And then our start time, and let me just show you a little bit different things that you could do with this. Before we just clicked on the number, you can also drag that line to 2 and then 30 for 2:30. So you can either tap and drag, or you can actually just tap on the number that you want it to be. 2 easy ways to put the time in. And that was PM. So click OK. And then how many hours did you actually fish in that effort? So let's say in that effort we actually fished for 4 hours. Again, we get our indication that we can move on to the next screen. And then this is our catches page. This is where we're going to show the catch that we either threw back or kept, and any dispositions that we set up in our favorites. So for this trip, we're going to say that we kept 1 striped bass, we released 6 black sea bass, we released 2 bluefish, we kept 1 bluefish, we kept 4 Atlantic cod, and we threw back one northern puffer fish as a dead discard. So that's a lot of different fish, but let's show how easy it is to put that in. So the first is your 6 black sea bass that were released alive. So we're going to click on black sea bass. And our quantity was 6. And we released those alive. Catch source real quick, I just wanted to click on that. It's almost always going to be standard, but let's just show you what the other items are. So if you were part of a research set aside, or you put it in your car in those areas that you can, or aquaculture. But as I said, most of these are standard. So we'll just leave that. And then save. Next we had a striped bass that we kept. And although you don't have to put in the length, you certainly could. And let's say that this was 35 inches. And we actually kept that for food. Then we said that we had 2 bluefish that we released. One bluefish that we kept. And we kept that for food. We said that we kept 4 Atlantic cod. And each of those cod were probably about 16 inches. Kept those for food. And then we had 1 northern puffer. So since northern puffer is not part of our favorites list, we're going to go up here and click on the big search button. We're going to click in search and put puffer, and as you can see, that comes up. So we're going to click on northern puffer. We had 1 of those, and that was actually a dead discard. Okay, so what I wanted to show you here is that as we were putting those species in, our summary was keeping track of those. Our individual catches that we were putting in show up here. I wanted to go in and quickly show how we can aggregate that catch as well under our summary. So let's say that we ended up getting 3 more striped bass. What we would do is we would click on striped bass. 3 more. We kept those for food. Click save. And now you'll see that we now have 4 striped bass instead of the 1 that we originally had. Now if you wanted to go in and change any of these catch, delete them or anything like that, it's really easy. Just click on the catches tab here, and that's going to bring you to your individual catches that you put in. So let's say your black sea bass, you said, oh, we didn't actually have 6, we had 5 of those. You could click on this, click 5, and it'll show us 5. And you could say, you know what, that 1 striped bass that we had, let's delete that. So we could click on that. We can delete that item. And all of that is going to appear back here in your summary. So this is something that you could look at while you're on your trip, and that's going to have all of your aggregated fish in there. Okay, so we're done. We put in all of the fish that we caught. The next thing we're going to do is go to the offload button. And the offload section is where you would show that you sold things to dealer if you were on a commercial trip. But for a for-hire trip, we actually do the work for you. We assume that on a for-hire trip that the catches that you have that you kept for food, that you've offloaded those to the same port in which you left from. If that isn't the case, or if you wanted to look at your offload or change anything on your offload, you can actually click on the offload tab. And that's going to show you all of your different items that you had as keepers, and that you had a no sale retained, and that you left and returned from Point Judith. If that wasn't the case, and say that you offloaded these to another area, you can click on this and then go into the details of that, and you can change any amounts that you have here. And if you went into details, you could say I actually dropped those anglers off down in Newport. So your offload port would actually be Newport. Then if you wanted to, you can just click on Save. That's going to have all of those catches saved as retained and showing the drop-off port as Newport. Okay, when you're done with your offloads, the next thing you're going to do is send in your trip report. So click on Trip Report, and you'll notice that it automatically pulls up the trip that you were on. Because this is the only trip that we have, it's the only one that's going to show up in this list. So what you want to do is click on that you certify that this information is true to the best of your ability. And now once you do that, you'll see that the Submit button in the lower right-hand corner is enabled. Let's click on Submit. And that's going to upload your vessel trip report to the state. And then once you're done, if you hit the Done button up here, that's going to take you back to your home screen. Okay, so there you did. You put in your first trip. If you want to take a look at it, you can go to your logbook. Then if you wanted to look at details of the trip itself, you can click anywhere in this black box region. If you wanted to go straight to the catches, you could click on the Catches tab. And that's going to bring you straight back to your catches, where you could go in and click on any of your catches and do anything that you wanted to do with that. If you wanted to see the summary of your trip, you could click there, and that's going to pull up your trip summary. I wanted to bring your attention to the trip ID up here right at the top. This ID is sent back from the ACCSP once you send in the trip. And this is a unique identifier to this trip, and it's something that the states can use. In lieu of that VTR field that we showed you in the beginning, this trip ID can link this trip with something such as a dealer report. If you scroll down on that summary page, that'll show you a summary of all of your trip information, your effort details, along with your catches, and any of your offload information. If you needed to edit any of this information, you could do so quickly by clicking on the Edit tab. From there, you could pick any of the things that you wanted to edit, such as catches or the trips or the offload, anything like that. You could get quickly into the area that you needed to edit just by clicking on the Edit tab. You'll also notice that you can use the Menu tab to quickly go through and jump to any parts of that trip that you want to look at. To get back to the home screen, you can just click on the Menu tab and then click on Home. And that's going to bring you back ready to put in your next trip. Some of the other items I wanted to show you on here: Do Not Fish reports. If you click in the menu and then click on Do Not Fish report, that's going to bring you up a calendar, and you can put in all the information for your Do Not Fish report. You see here that the 14 is grayed out. That's because we have a trip already on that date. So what you can do here is either select all, and that'll put them all in, and then you can deselect the ones that you don't want, or you could tap on them individually. So once you have the dates for your Do Not Fish, you can again click that you certify that this is true, and then submit that as well. So there you have it. You successfully sent in and uploaded your first trip report. I hope that was easy enough for you to follow, and we appreciate you watching these training videos. If at any time you have any questions, please feel free to call us on our help desk line. We appreciate any feedback that you have about the app and anything that we can do to improve it. Thanks so much for watching.